Welcome back to part 2 of Next on the Tee. We're not done yet. Coming up, more stories, more insight, and more reasons to love this game. Let's dive right back in. Part 2 starts now, right here on Next on the Tee, where golf legends live and your game gets better.
Hey everybody, thanks for coming back and pressing play on part 2 of this week's show featuring my conversation with the great Michael Whelan. Michael, as you'll learn throughout the course of this next segment, is just a tremendous individual. What I think is a creative genius. Did so much over the course of his career at HBO, CBS, NBC, getting the Golf Channel off the ground. Again, the guy who created every one of the shows, hired every one of the people in front of and behind the cameras. Just a tremendous feat, and did it in less than 6 months. You're going to hear that story. You're also going to hear some things that are going to tug at your heartstrings. Michael has been through the ringer with cancer. It has attacked many places in his body, persevered through it, and is fighting back and doing a heck of a job at it. Meanwhile, something that is tugging on his heartstrings is what his wife is going through. Parkinson's disease is tearing her body apart and just tearing Michael's heart apart as he is watching his wife go through that and being taken away from him, really, by that disease. So you're going to hear all of those things, plus about his new books that are out now. So he's got The Final Broadcast, which was co-authored by he and a great friend of ours, Tucker Booth. That book is coming out soon. It's already available as an audiobook, so go get it, and you can pre-order it on Amazon. He's got a second book out titled Bella, The Little Furry Chiweenie Who Saved Our Lives. You can also get that one on Amazon, a wonderful short read that I think will really put a smile on your face. Michael's fantastic. Sit back, relax, let us take your mind off everything else going on in your life for the next hour or so. Okay, but before we get into all of that, I want to start off by reminding you about our wonderful friends over at 2 Under. 2 Under men's performance briefs are the unofficial underwear of the PGA, Ryder Cup, and President's Cup teams, and are sold in over 3,000 golf pro shops and golf specialty retailers nationwide. Ricky Fowler is their global ambassador, and over 50 other PGA, Korn Ferry, and Champions Tour players wear them. Just to mention a few, they are David Toms, Jerry Kelly, Justin Thomas, William McGirt, Scott McCarron, and Chris DeMarco. The Joey Pouch technology provides the ultimate male asset management, delivering maximum comfort from the tee box to the boardroom to the bedroom. Go to 2under.com to check out the bundle specials that offer substantial discounts for being a Next on the Tee listener. That's the number 2, UNDR.com. 2 Under, performance in your pants. I also want to remind you about our wonderful friends over at Squares Golf. Before I bring them into the show, let's talk about our friends over at Squares Golf. And folks, do you sway and you're off balance in your golf swing? You know what? It could be your shoes. A golf shoe needs structure to provide stability and reduce sway. How can you tell if your shoes lack structure and are hurting your game? If you can hold your shoes by the toe and heel and twist it, toss it. Squares was designed for the perfect balance of structure and comfort. Isn't it time you tried Squares? Try the new Speedbolt at squares.com. That's SQAIRZ.com. And don't forget, my friends back in the Berg, if you're from Pittsburgh or just love that blue-collar grit, Steel City's got you covered, literally. From vintage sports tees to iconic Berg designs, their gear is bold, local, and built to last. Check out their stores around Pittsburgh or head to shopsteelcity.com to rep the city in style. Steel City brand, built with blood, sweat, and steel.
Sure, this is golf, but so is this. And this. And this is definitely golf. And so is this. Hey, that's not golf. Oh, wait, yeah, it is. And no matter what your golf is, you're gonna need a store. No, a superstore. A place to get fit for a new club and walk out with it the same day. A place to find the perfect fit. A place to do whatever this is. Because this is golf. And this is golf's superstore.
Okay, now back and next on the tee with me is Michael Whelan. Michael was the driving force behind the Golf Channel when it got started back in 1995. He was the VP of production and the executive producer. He hired all the people in front of and behind the cameras. He also created all the shows. Michael also spent time at HBO, CBS, and NBC. He's a production genius that has been silent for far too long. His father spent time as a trainer for my hometown Pittsburgh Pirates from 1962 to 1967. Michael got to spend some time as the bat boy there as well and had an opportunity to meet several of the Pirate legends. He turned me on to several guests, including our wonderful friend Scott Hamilton. Please go on Twitter and follow Michael at Mike J. Whelan. On there, he chronicles his daily battles with cancer, which first came for his prostate, then his head and neck, followed by his tongue and his GI system. And each time he has come through it. Then his wife Rebecca was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, so if his own battles weren't heart-wrenching enough, he's watching his wife slowly being taken away from him. Through his writing, we're able to see the hell that they're going through his eyes. Our good friend Tucker Booth assisted Michael in putting all of this in a new book that is going to be coming out soon titled The Final Broadcast, with the foreword being written by Scott Hamilton. He's written a second book titled Bella, the Furry Little Chiweenie Who Saved Our Lives, which you can get out on Amazon. I've got my copy sitting right here next to me, and I couldn't be more honored that I get to have Michael back with me this week here on Next on the Tee. Hey, Michael, how are you, my friend?
My dear friend Chris, how are you tonight?
I'm good. You?
I was wondering if you wanted to talk about my fairways hit and regulation, any of my club head speed or my apex of my ball, because we can get this all over with in about a minute or two, and I can get back to bed.
I'd love to hear about what your club head speed is nowadays. I'm sure it's way better than mine.
You know, I stopped playing about 2 or 3 years ago. I think it was barely about 105 at tops, but at the time for 67 years old, that wasn't too bad. I was still hitting it 225 to 250. So playing the white tees, I was having a grand old time. It's great to be back with you. It's been far too long.
Indeed. So, Michael, before we get into everything else, just for context and for background for those who aren't as...
We're going to talk about my eulogy tonight. It sounds like you're reading my my obituary out of the paper tonight.
God forbid. God forbid, Michael. For those who aren't as familiar with you and your background, talk about your time at HBO, CBS, NBC, the Golf Channel, because everyone in sports.
It's really an interesting story that probably can never happen in the 21st century. I went to college on a baseball scholarship. I grew up family not very wealthy, so there was no way that I was going to go to college at all. I just happened to be a great athlete at the time. So I was fortunate enough to go to St. Mary's College out in Moraga, California, better known these days for their basketball team, grabbing all the guys from Australia. But my plan was always to become a professional baseball player. By the time I got to be a junior or a senior, I realized that I was pretty good, but at 5'10", 170, I wasn't quite Dave Winfield-like, and decided that I better have something to fall back on. So long story short, I got a master's degree and then got accepted to go to NYU Medical School, which was a great idea because you mentioned my father a little bit earlier. My parents divorced when I was very, very young, back in the 60s, a time when families never talked about divorce. It was kept very, very quiet and hush hush. But when I got accepted to NYU, it was great for me because it was going to be an opportunity for me again to rekindle and reconnect with my estranged father. I happened to be out in New York and got taken out to a party one night that was for a production of a soap opera. Had an opportunity to sit in a control room, and I was just absolutely mesmerized by what I saw. It was the most interesting, fun. It had metaphors that connect to sports. It was teamwork. and I just loved it. The after party, I happened to meet the president of CBS Sports at the time, a gentleman by the name of Terry O'Neill, who did a lot with CBS and with NBC. And Terry was a friend of my father who was with the Knicks at the time and said, Michael, if you ever decide you don't want to be a doctor, here's my card. And 14 days later, I dropped out of NYU and went to be a production assistant with CBS Sports. And to tell you how far back that was, Chris, that was the same year that John Madden was just starting with CBS at the time. So I was just a young 23-year-old kid back then. I spent about a year at CBS. They made some cutbacks. I was one of the last in, first to go, and got picked up by HBO Sports for 14 days to do a Marvin Hagler boxing championship fight. And those 14 days turned into 14 years. I became the director of production and programming over at HBO Sports, where we just did the best boxing. We did Wimbledon, we did the documentaries. And when I say the best, the reason why I say that is, back in, people don't realize back in 1981, 82, HBO was probably the only place you could go where you could watch programming that didn't have any commercial interruption. So we were doing these little mini movies so we had to be really sharp producers, directors, cinematographers, writers, because we were creating mini movies for the viewers. And it's there where I learned everything from two gentlemen, my dear friend and brother, Ross Greenberg, a good friend of this show's, and my other friend, who was Rick Bernstein, who kind of ran the ship after Ross left. And I just had the best tutelage in the world. I was a big golf fan. One day in 1993, I was uh, just kind of minding my own business, and one of our senior vice presidents tapped me on the shoulder and said, I might have something for you. Was very coy and quiet about it. I had no idea what something for me meant. I kind of thought maybe that he was going to another one of the networks and might want to take me along. But it turned out that it was Bob Greenway, and Bob Greenway had been approached by Joe Gibbs and IMG about being the senior vice president of what would be the Golf Channel in Orlando, Florida. And they needed a vice president of production and programming, somebody who within 5 months could put a 24-hour, 7-day a week, 365 days show on the air. And Bob just knew of my creativity. He knew of my production skills. He knew how I knew people in the industry and made me an offer on a cold winter day in New York. And I accepted the job, and I was in Orlando, Florida in June of 94, and we launched in January of 95. And I was there for almost five and a half years, and left, parted ways, and have been doing many other things since.
So let's take that a half a step further, Michael, because correct me if I'm wrong, but as I remember the story, you literally created all the shows. You hired all the people on camera. You hired all the people behind the camera. You did the whole thing in that 5 months.
Yeah. I was the creative maestro conductor of the Golf Channel. The interesting thing about that is at that particular time in 1994, there was two kind of niche networks that were being created. One was the Golf Channel that Joe Gibbs gave me 5 months to put it together. And at the same time, Fox News was being created. And Rupert Murdoch gave Roger Ailes I think, about $18 billion in 18 months to put it together. So that was the difference of the two. Yeah, there was, when I was hired, there were no shows. Not one person had been hired. So prior to going to the Golf Channel, I produced Wimbledon tennis. And on the flight to Wimbledon and on the flight back from Wimbledon, I just began to scribble down all of the names and all of the shows that I wanted to do. I wanted the Golf Channel to be intimate, meaning that people that were watching it were getting things that they could never get. Lessons from Jim Flick, from Jim McLean. They could talk to Arnold Palmer. They could talk to Nancy Lopez. We were going to have our typical golf lessons. We were going to do tournament broadcasting. We were going to do old golf, Shell's Wonderful World of Golf. We were going to do how to make your own clubs. So I pretty much put everything together in about 14 hours. And then when I arrived in Orlando, Florida, the studio hadn't even been built yet. The offices were still under construction. So we were just in an old strip mall office building. And it was just me, myself, and Bob Greenway in the production department. And I sat there with the largest whiteboard that you ever saw. And I just put down every single show and I wrote down every single person. And for about 5 months, I was the most feared executive in television because I spent half of my days calling every single person that I knew at every single network and did my best to steal them from ESPN, CBS, ABC. So it didn't matter. It didn't matter. I had to get 100 people to put this on the air in 5 months, and lo and behold, I ended up hiring about 75, 80%. My right-hand guy, Paul Farnsworth, helped me out with the rest. But yeah, I was flying around the country composing all the music for all the shows. I was designing all the sets for everything that we were going to do, the graphics, everything that popped up came out of my little pea brain. And when Joe and Arnie pulled that proverbial switch, I think it was on January 17th of 1995, it worked. And the show came on and it looked absolutely beautiful. It didn't look like public access. It looked like it could have been an HBO show because I knew damn well, as did Joe, as did everybody else, that the advertisers, the distributors, anybody who had any inkling in investing into this niche network, we were going to have one chance to impress everybody. And lo and behold, I was very blessed. I got some of the greatest men and women, producers, directors, PAs. I hired Scott Van Pelt, who was a production assistant in 1994. Scott had never been on air. Kelly Tillman had never been on air. Rich Lerner had rarely never been on air. All these people today who are golf's, television superstars, they were just production assistants at the time. And we were just in a great position where I could train, I could teach, and we had a lot of fun. It was a crazy time. It was the wild, wild west, but we did something that will forever be marked in the annals of sports television.
And along with that, I have seen many, many pictures of you with some of the greatest athletes and celebrities of our time. You've gotten to meet just about everybody. Talk about some of your favorite moments of the people that you had an opportunity to either work alongside or to spend some time with.
Well, it's because of what I did. It's not just because there was a guy named Mike Whelan who was hanging out in New York and everybody wanted to hang out with me. my job was producing the greatest sports events that existed. So if you want to go down boxing, there was Ali, and there was Joe Frazier, and there was Mike Tyson, and there was my good friend Sugar Ray Leonard, and there was Hector Macho Camacho, and there was Julio Cesar Chavez, and there was Mildred Taylor's. There was Larry Holmes. If you're talking tennis, dear friends, Billie Jean King, and we had Arthur Ashe and Martina Navratilova and Chris Everett and John Lloyd and Barry Tompkins as our host and Jim Lampley. And we had Larry Merchant. And football, there was Jim Brown and Chris Collinsworth and my dear skating brothers and sisters, Scott Hamilton, Brian Boitano, Rosalind Sumners. It didn't matter. I was just blessed to meet all of these wonderful men and women who became friends of mine over the course of the years.
So let's switch gears a little bit, Mike, as you've written so eloquently in the stories that you share with us almost daily out there on Twitter. You have certainly been through hell with your battle with cancer. You've kicked its ass a number of different times, but it has taken parts of your body with it. Talk about your battle with cancer.
Well, cancer runs in my family. I lost my mother when I was 24 years old. My mom had just turned 50 from stage 4 double breast cancer and lymphatic cancer. My mom fought a real hard battle, but back in the 1970s, the research and the technology of cancer was not what it was today. So as a young kid, 13, 14, 15 years old, I had a front row seat, unfortunately, watching my dear mother, who was just absolutely an angel, raising 3 kids, working double shifts as a waitress with terminal cancer. Back in 2011 is when everything began, and I was diagnosed with prostate cancer back in 2011 and a half, almost 2012. And we removed the prostate. I did my chemotherapy and radiation. It was, I'll be very honest with you, I was very lucky that time around. It wasn't, I got through it pretty simply. And that was pretty much that for quite a while. We have to fast forward 13 years down the 13 years, no, it was in 1922. So we have in 2022 is when I went in to see my pain management specialist for a bad back, and we always do a 6-month MRI to see what the arthritis is doing. And we did the MRI test, and a day or two later, I got a call back that said, "We'd like to see you in the office." And I asked what for, and they pretty much just said, "We'll let you know when you get here." So, when somebody tells you that, or when your boss says, "I want to see you on Monday," and you got the whole weekend to worry about what the hell did you do. So I was a little bit concerned. I had no idea. It never crossed my mind. But when I walked into my doctor's office on that Monday, they said the good news is your back isn't any worse than what it is, which is pretty bad already. But they said the suspicious thing is that there's a very large mass in your neck, and we're not sure if it's just a benign lymph node, but we think it's best that you meet with your primary care physician. And I did, and he immediately sent me to Orlando Hospital's oncology department and their head and neck cancer ward. And at that point, the ball started to get rolling. They did a nasal endoscopy. They did some palpitations. They then sent me for a physical biopsy where they actually take a little piece out of the neck, and they also do what they call an aspiration biopsy, or they do stick a needle into the tumor and they pull out some of the fluid that's inside. And within 2 days, I was diagnosed with what they stage 4 head and neck cancer. So it was no doubt a shock. I um, I kind of kept quiet. I didn't really know how to take it in. I wasn't as afraid as I should have been. I didn't share it with my wife for a couple of days. I kept it quiet. And then when I did tell her, I kind of didn't quite tell her how serious it was. I certainly didn't want to worry her. Um, so we ended up doing the surgery. It was in my neck, and they had to take out almost 60 lymph nodes out of the right side of my face. The surgery was a success. The lymph nodes was a success. Unfortunately, they did a lot of damage to a lot of the nerves that do run in the face area. So I have no feeling in my face any longer, and I have a somewhat of a frozen shoulder. But after that, I did the chemotherapy, I did the radiation, and they gave me 18 months to live. And every time I went back in, they would just shrug and say, well, don't know what's happening, but you're beating the odds. And I pretty much said that I've always lived the never ever give up Jimmy Valvano life, and I don't plan on going anywhere. And that's kind of what happened with the head and neck cancer. It certainly has caused a lot of collateral damage in my life. I thought I was, pretty much scot-free for a couple of years. And then in September of 24, on a PET scan, the PET scan lit up on my tongue. The type of head and neck cancer that I have has the propensity to metastasize from the neck to the lymph nodes, to the salivary glands, to the throat, to the tonsils, and to the tongue. Mark Rolfing had it. Fred Clare from the Dodgers had it. The Michael Douglas, who's become a good friend, Michael Douglas had it. Val Kilmer had it. It's just a common HPV, head and neck cancer, that causes a lot of problems and lays dormant in people's lives for decades, and then sometimes it just rears its ugly head. But when it went into my tongue, that was a little bit worrying because initially, they were going to have to remove almost half of my tongue and do a skin graft from my thigh. But as time went on and we did more tests, they thought that they could take a more conservative approach. So they ended up only taking maybe a quarter size piece of the back of my tongue, which, as you can probably tell, through therapy, I speak fairly well considering I'm missing a big chunk of my tongue in the back. But unfortunately, the type of job that I had, I talked to a lot of people. The cancer from the prostate, the cancer from the head and neck, the cancer from the lymph nodes, the cancer from the tongue, just beat the hell out of me. And it was more the collateral damage. It caused a lot of problems to my GI system. It destroyed my esophagus. I ended up having to have surgery to have my throat stretched because when they cut my head open for the cancer, they injured a numerous amount of the facial nerves, one being called the vagus nerve, which tells the esophagus every day when to open and close when you're eating, things that you will never ever think about until something goes wrong. You bite into a good sandwich, you chew it, you swallow it, and that's it. Or you have a cold beer, but there's a nerve that tells the esophagus when to open and close so the food can go down. Mine didn't do that. So I was choking and aspirating and gagging and I couldn't eat, and I was losing pounds and nutrition, and so I had to end up being hospitalized for quite a while. And they had to actually, during my tongue cancer, they actually had to stop the chemo treatment because I was just getting too sick and too weak. So they focused on my insides. They did a good job on it. Today, I'm still alive. I mean, I'm now going on August 7th. It will be 3 years. They gave me 18 months. So, Chris, I write about it every day. I'm stronger than the storm. I got on Twitter back in 2017 just to talk a little bit about television and about sports. People wanted to know about the Golf Channel's early days, and I was the guy. But nobody had heard from me in decades. I never, in my wildest dreams, thought it would morph into this. Once I was diagnosed with the cancer, I decided to do something that wasn't being done on Twitter at the time. And I changed my page where I called it my cancer update, where I gave a journal. I invited everybody who wanted to be into my life, into our life. And I talked about what it was like to live with cancer every single day, the good, the bad, and the ugly, posting some real raw photos. But you know what? Nobody helped me when I had it. There was not a manual, there was not a syllabus, and I just thought that if it's just happening to me, there's millions of people globally who can benefit from this. And so I used my television production skills, my writing skills, and I had about 200 people following me at the time. And within a month or two, I was getting over 1 million views a week talking about my cancer. And now, years later, I've got a wonderful community of brothers and sisters from all over the world. I help people. I advocate for cancer, for mental health illness, which I suffer from bipolar disorder, anxiety, and panic attacks, but I talk about it openly, and I have way before it was cool to be a person with mental health issues. I've unfortunately had to become a Parkinson's issue, so I spend almost my entire day writing, helping my wife, and doing my best to help others.
So, Mike, and I want to get to Rebecca in a minute, but to me, for all the things that you've been through over the course of your life and the things that have been positive and the things that have been negative, you're an amazing individual, because even through the course of what you said here, but what we get to read on your page on Twitter, I mean, you at least maintain on an outward perspective kind of a positive outlook. And you, to what you said a moment ago, you haven't succumbed to any of it. Anybody, so many people would have succumbed to what you've had to deal with, but it feels to me like your mental strength and the person that you are on the inside, the fighter that you are on the inside, has allowed you to overcome things that a lesser person would have succumbed to years ago. Tell me a little bit about, because I got to believe that your positive outlook has played an important role in your ability to fight through it all.
Well, I think you're 100% right. I think part of that has to do with my DNA. Part of it has to do, I truly believe, with me growing up in a high level athletic environment where I'm used to getting beat up a little bit. I'm used to falling behind. I'm used to getting uh, beaten by the other team. I'm used to being given bad news. So a lot of these things I take with a grain of salt. The game is not over until, the buzzer goes off in the fourth quarter or at the end of the ninth inning, or until you finish your lap on your freestyle swim. So, I've always been a proponent that regardless of what people tell me, because ever since I've been 8 years old, I've been told, what I cannot do. I was an 8-year-old kid with a lisp and dyslexia and mental health issues and a broken home. And, I was going to be a nobody. And I proved people wrong that way. I just believe that, you've got to, first, create the positivity inside of your head. And it's hard. It's really, really difficult because not everybody thinks that way. And I'm going through this right now with my wife, who couldn't be more different from me as far as being the fighter and the person. I mean, when I had my cancer, 7 days later, I wanted to go back to work. They told me no, but I didn't stay a day or two in bed. I was driving the car. I was doing things. Yeah, I think never ever give up. It's and I say that with you know you can still lose the battle and never ever give up. Not everybody who fights hard is always going to beat cancer or Parkinson's or ALS or MS or dementia or Alzheimer's. We're going to lose a lot of men and women and children who fight real hard, but unfortunately, cancer just just got to them a little bit too much, and they ran out of time. So I mean, I use my sports skills. I use my positivity. I try to make light of it. I try to write about it. I don't keep it inside. I talk about it. I try to be humorous about it a little bit. And it did that make a big difference? Maybe. I'm sure there's other positive people out there who have followed, my blueprint, who didn't have the great results. But I do think you're right, Chris. I think that, that going back to my athletic days, I just dug in there until the game was over, and I always believed we had a chance to come back and win. And with cancer so far, it's beating me up in a tough 12-round heavyweight fight with Mike Tyson. I'm getting punched. I'm getting knocked down. I haven't been counted on yet. So I'm going to keep going until the bell rings in the 12th round.
Let's talk about your wife, Rebecca. Go back to the beginning with her, because the love affair that you share with us in your stories is absolutely amazing. When did you first meet her?
1969. Summer of 69.
And where did you meet her at?
In Marin County, California, Northern California, about 40 miles for those who don't know the area, from San Francisco, heading toward the Napa Valley. When my parents divorced when I was 9 years old in 63, we had moved 64. We had moved out with my mom to Northern California, where her parents were. And we started a life in Northern California. Rebecca and I met in high school. We couldn't have been more different. I was the jock. I was working on my jump shot and my fastball and my switch hitting abilities, and making sure that I could do a good a route as a receiver. And Rebecca and her friends were sitting out in the parking lot and in the football field smoking pot back in 1969, 70. So she was a hippie chick. She was a California free spirited. She loved her animals. She loved her homegrown cannabis from the ground. And boy, I'll tell you, opposites sure attract. But we just got along, and just had a wonderful relationship. And I've done a lot of traveling. She's done a lot of traveling. We've been together on and off. We he, we've broken up more times than more people probably will ever in their lives. But there's something about her and I, the War of the Roses. 54 years later, we're still stuck with one another.
That's wonderful. So, in her battle, when did you first start to recognize that things weren't right?
Well, I've written about this many times, and it's a strange thing. And I remember the date. It was February 14th, 2018. It was Valentine's Day, a day I should have been given flowers and kisses and dinner to Rebecca, but instead, on that particular day, her and I had come down with one of the worst flus we've ever had in our life. And I mean the worst flu. I was sick, more sick from this flu than I was from any cancer I've ever gone through. And her and I just sat in bed. And I know it was February 14th because on that particular day, there were multiple things going on. That was the day of the Parkland shootings in Parkland, Florida, where the kids were killed by the lone shooter. And
Yeah.
on the other side of the country, it was the Olympic Games were going on at that time. So I remember just being sick as a dog with Rebecca watching between the Parkland shootings and the Olympics that were happening. But she was so sick that at the end of her uh, virus, she just looked at me and said, "I will never be the same again." Now, when somebody says that to you, you empathize with them. You realize you've been through a hard time. But from 2018, um, almost every month, the symptoms became a lot worse, to the point where her gait, her ability to walk, her ability for her brain to tell her legs what to do almost stopped working, to where she would freeze. She couldn't lift her legs. She couldn't move. Um, and that's when we started to get help. It happened in 18, but really in about 21 is when we started to see physicians who started to look more deeply into this. And at that point is when they recognized that she was having Parkinsonian's symptoms. And from 21 up until today, she's now been treated as an advanced Parkinson's patient, and only in the last maybe 4 or 5 months has she really started to horribly fade.
So, how do you keep up your own physical battles while assisting her, plus dealing with all the emotional issues of watching your wife kind of slowly slip away from you?
Well, I'm a type A personality. Uh, as a person with bipolar, I do have mania episodes that keep me going. I'm a control freak. My love language is problem solving. So for Rebecca, to a fault, I'm going to say I don't recommend this for somebody, but I have put all of my issues on the back burner to make sure that she's taken care of, because she's now advancing to where the walking is starting to become impossible. The cognitive abilities, what Parkinson's does is it goes into the brain and it removes a chemical called dopamine. And dopamine is what we use every single day for movement, for putting your arms to your mouth to take a bite of spaghetti and just to walk up the steps, to walk to your car. Um, what Parkinson's does is it strips the body of the dopamine, and once it's gone, it hasn't been replaced. I mean, you look at Michael J. Fox, probably one of the more wealthiest guys in the world, somebody who has access to every Parkinson's physician on planet Earth, and he's still in a wheelchair struggling with all of the resources he has. So you can only imagine how difficult it is, because the neurological departments of all these hospitals are so understaffed with people. I don't understand why. When I had my cancer, it was like a well-oiled machine. But when you have neurological problems, trying to get the help in a timely manner, having enough uh, doctors who can help you, it's impossible to find. And so therefore, people suffer at home until they're taken a look at, and there's no clinical uh, the identification that you've got the disease. It's more of a clinical diagnosis by a physician looking and putting a patient through a myriad of symptoms and tests and this and that. So um, Rebecca just had to go into the hospital for 3 days because she couldn't walk, she couldn't freeze, she didn't know where she was. Um, she she didn't know a lot of things that were frightening, and we left after 3 days with very 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 little help, only because there isn't a magic pill for Parkinson's. There are Parkinsonians medications, but they come with terrible side effects, and the side effects are drowsiness, hallucinations, cognitive problems. So we've all seen videos of people with dementia and Alzheimer's, and Parkinson's fits right in there. So um, I don't know how I do it some days, Chris. Some days, you know, at 2 in the morning, I go outside and I cry for 2 or 3 hours because I'm just so overwhelmed about what's happening every single day. I had to leave my job to take care of her. Um, uh, we live, unfortunately, in the United States, where some of the greatest physicians are. Unfortunately, we've got a lot of hiccups with our healthcare system. Rebecca and I just got our year to date from the last 3 years, and my cancer and her Parkinson's. Um, the insurance company has been billed almost $4.5 million in 4 years for just her and I. Out of that 4.5 million, uh, we pay a co-pay, a percentage. So let's say you pay, 5% of 4 million. I don't know, what is that, $200,000, $300,000? I don't know a lot of people that have uh, hundreds of thousands of dollars saved up. If God forbid um, they go into a medical disaster, and it's called financial toxicity. It's something that I work very very hard about trying to change the healthcare system and to change the insurance system. um, I work a little bit with Brett Saberhagen of the Kansas City Royals, who has a wonderful organization called Sabe's Wings, where people who are going to lose their home, that are good, they're going to get their lights shut off, who can't put food in. Um, if people qualify, Brett's foundation will help them pay their bills. But Rebecca and I had a plan 7 years ago that I was going to retire by 70, and we were going to move to California and move to the Napa Valley and take care of her mother in a beautiful home and live rent free. And I was going to play golf, and the universe, his HR system, had another plan for Rebecca and I, and sent us a memo that said plans have been changed. So it's really tough. Rebecca can't travel. She barely gets out of the house. Her mother, who is 95 years old, is in home hospice, so she can't see her mother. That breaks her heart. And I know that she knows that she's slipping away every day. I write about it a lot. I mean, a lot. Um, some people can deal with it. Some people have a hard time with it. But I think that we need to educate people. I think pictures speak thousands of words. You can talk about it, but until you see what it's like, or you hear what it's like, or you watch what it's like, you have no idea what these diseases do to people. Plus, um, you know, when the day finally comes, I'm going to have thousands of hours of video, and I hope to put together an educational documentary or a movie on living as a care partner with somebody with Parkinson's, and hopefully I can take up and be a right-hand person to the Michael J. Fox Foundation and so many others who have been doing Parkinson's work far beyond me. But I don't know how I do it. It's I don't recommend it. It's not healthy. Um, there are days when my health is bad, and my biggest fear is for me dying before Rebecca. That would be the worst. That would be the worst scenario that could possibly happen. So, I stay positive. I try to be positive with her. But it's damn hard being a caretaker to the person you love more than anything in the world, who you have a front row seat and you're watching them fade every single day.
Tucker Booth is a mutual friend of ours, and you guys have written a wonderful book, like I say, that I cannot wait to get my hands on. I think I know a lot of the story from the things that you write each and every day, but it's titled The Final Broadcast. Scott Hamilton wrote the foreword to it. Talk about putting this book together and what we're going to learn when we get our copy of it.
Well, I'm not sure if some people got. First of all, I want to say this is not a memoir. This is not my memoir story. What I did was I took it. I've been journaling ever since I've been, got 40 years, and I've got notes from everything from when I was a kid. And when I was sick, I had an opportunity to look through all of these things that I've done, traveling across the country, running television companies, having cancer, meeting the most craziest people, putting myself in situations that I shouldn't. And I said, what if I took snapshots from everything I did and just created? This is a fictional work based on true stories. Everything in the book is true except for three things. So, to all your viewers, if you figure out what the three things are that aren't true, I'll give you lifetime free copies of all my books. But it's just a story about a television executive, a kind of a curmudgeon guy who's just focused on business, for whatever reason we don't know in the beginning, but he doesn't have a lot of friends. Uh, but he's got one major problem, and the major problem is he's diagnosed with terminal cancer. And what does somebody do who's alone in their lives, who have pretty much pushed everybody out of their lives? What does somebody do when they only have a year to live? Well, this character, Michael Baxter, decides that he's going to see what the big hoopla is about the beauty that this country and the world provides. So he ends up getting into his car and he's going to drive across the country and see if he can't restructure his brain to understand about why he let so much love go, why he screwed up so many relationships, why he chose not to take advantage of the beauty, and what was it about his life that got him to where he is. So it's in the sort of a Hunter Thompson, Jack Kerouac, Ernest Hemingway, cross country road trip, um, before the guy dies, and it's just a fascinating introspective look at himself. He meets some wonderful people who open his eyes to what we all need to be looking at. He gets to see the beauty. You get to learn about him as a character, and it's really a lot about me in it. It was a story that I was going to write a long time ago without anybody. Um, but Tucker and I have obviously become dear friends through the years. So instead of me writing the book 100% on my own, I just reached out to Tucker and said, "Do you have a couple of hours a week where maybe you can help me out a little bit, play around?" And he was excited about it. He put in some good ideas. Um, Reached out to my good friend Scott Hamilton, who I asked if he would write the forward, and did a beautiful job. We had a great editor by the name of Randy Roberts, Randall Roberts, who put it all together. And right now, it's in the stages of being, the final edit and being put together. It'll be on. I actually dropped the promotion for it. It's on my Twitter feed right now, but it's just a very interesting, deep, philosophical, spiritual, humorous, look at life, and how sometimes, we miss what's right in front of us, and we pay consequences for it. Uh, that's the one that's coming out soon. The one that's been out now for a month is Bella, and Bella, was a story that I wrote when I was going through chemotherapy. Bella is a service dog, and one day during my chemotherapy treatments, I was just sitting there and I said, "What the hell would happen if I brought my service dog into the chemo and it started to talk?" And just a crazy idea. And I started to write down some ideas. And before I knew it, in about a month, I had written a book, um, put it onto Amazon, and with a dear friend, Marianne Miller, who edited it for me. And unbelievably, it became the #1 new release on Amazon in 4 different categories. So Bella is out there. It's already sold hundreds of copies. It's the top of the list for new releases. The final broadcast, which is a snapshot memoir. It's a snapshot. It's not the memoir, but it's damn close. And then my third one that I just finished, I think I even sent it to you, which was the Fairways of Wisdom, which was an idea that I had 30 years ago when I was running the Golf Channel. I had this dream that I was playing golf and I was hit by lightning. And when I woke up, there was Bobby Jones. And I was freaked out. I didn't know if I was dead or alive. And Bobby Jones just helped me off the ground, and he played the rest of the round with me. So I just said, well, what instead of Bobby Jones, what if I got some of the 9 greatest legends of all times and just had this character, play a hole with 9 different people and get lessons about life, through the metaphors of golf, and that became um, pretty successful. We've got a couple of people. Ross Greenberg is a production partner with me on that. We got it into some people's hands. I know Paramount's looking at it with Jim Nance. The Larry David Company, one of his writers, are looking at it. So I've always been a writer. I've always wanted to write books. I've always had this great writing ability in me. I'm a very poetic, lyrical, uh, emotional writer, and when Rebecca got really sick, it was my way of dealing with my insomnia by going to my computer and just writing for sanity purposes, and it's turned out to have some great results.
Well, I'm certainly glad that you mentioned Fairways of Wisdom, because you did send me the manuscript and it's brilliant. So you know how much I love Ross Greenberg and how much he's meant to me. And I hope the two of you together can make that happen, because the stories and the lessons that you share in your writing through that one golfer's experience of having played a hole with all the different legends is absolutely fantastic. And I hope it's whatever it is, it ends up being sort of a movie or a quasi documentary, or however it turns out. It is something that I think the world needs to see, because you do such a brilliant job with that.
I agree with you. I just, it's kind of funny that, back in 1995, when I wrote the treatment to it, I took it to the Golf Channel first, obviously, but in 1995, the Golf Channel, I was way ahead of the Golf Channel, creatively and financially. The Golf Channel didn't have 3 or 4 or 5 million dollars to make a movie at the time. So it's been sitting in my drawer for 31 years. And after 31 years, I said, heck, I'm just going to write it and see what happened. And it turned out interesting. It's, it, I see it as a quick 1 hour movie on Netflix, or the week of the Masters on CBS.
Yes.
Uh, as a fun little thing. The way you make movies today, and you're talking to me about all of my celebrities. These days you got to get somebody attached to it. I got to get Bradley Cooper to play the main person, or I've got to get Bill Murray to play old Tom Morris, or I've got to get, you got to get a director and a producer to sign on with it, because trying to get movies and books published, record deals done, it's almost impossible, Chris. It's even in my life. People ask me all the time, God, you know what? I'm 70 years old. Everybody I know is either dead or retired. They're not in the business anymore. They're not in the business anymore. I don't have any contacts. My calls don't get answered as easily as they did 30 years ago. So, it's always great to work with friends. I mean, it connected Ross and I, who's been, as I've told you, without Ross, I would never have been a successful television writer, producer, director. I learned everything from Ross. And we're like brothers. We fight like brothers. We disagree like brothers. But we love like brothers also. And so it was a great, if nothing happens, it was just, I was so blessed that it brought us back together again for whatever time it lasts. And so, as I get older, as the sand in my hourglass is emptying faster than I would like it to. There are certain things in my life now that are just so important and meaningful to me. Um, and that's the love that I have for the very few people that are in my life. When you're in my type of business, most people you meet, your relationships are all transactional for the most part. Once you're not there, Hemingway said it best, fame, packs a bar and illness empties it faster than anything that you can believe. And it's absolutely true. So, um, Tucker and I, Tucker's like my son. He's like my teenage son that I got to beat around a little bit to get him into shape. Uh, I love him dearly. He's he's a great guy. There's a book just on the story about how he and I met, which is a story on its own. And then besides that, I've got two other books, and on top of that, there's one that's called Me and Hemingway, and it's just me. I just keep running into Ernest Hemingway wherever I go in my life. And as I'm going through all these problems with cancer and with Rebecca and everything, Ernest is just keeps appearing in my life, giving me his words of wisdom from his journeys and experiences. And now that's getting a lot of steam hookup. And then my last one is going to be the reason why the memoir, Chris, and that's the one everybody wants, is the real Michael J. Whelan story. That will happen, but that has to be my last book because there is lots of NDAs in that book, and there's a lot of stuff in there that people want to hear about. But I'm not in a position today to end up in court over NDAs and a book over stories of my life and things. So I know everybody wants that one, but it's going to have to wait a little bit. That will be my farewell to the world. And then the last one is going to be Love Letters Lost, and that's just my love affair with Rebecca and how it started and what it's become, surprisingly and awfully in our later years.
Michael, you are truly an amazing individual for all of the things and the many ways that things have come to you, the way that you've dealt with them, the way that you've conquered things, and the way that you've dealt with them. It's like I said earlier, the things that you were going through health wise are things that would have destroyed a lesser man. The things that you were dealing with emotionally with Rebecca are things that could tear a person apart. Yet you are persevering, you are still positive, you write so eloquently that we get to kind of see all of this through your eyes. I just think you're just an amazing man for everything that you've accomplished, by the way, and then the way that you have handled things ever since then. I just think you're, I can't say it any better. I just think you're an amazing individual for all of the things that you have done over the course of your life.
Yeah, and I always have to throw in the reality of that is, you know, part of being that person is making a lot of mistakes and falling down a lot of times and learning your lessons and trying to improve. And I my feeling about life is, I wake up every day trying to make the world a better place for everybody that I come in contact with. And if I can do no good on a particular day, please do no harm. And I've grown up a lot. My last 20 years, I'm a different person than I was my first 50 years. Uh, I'm I'm a better human being. I'm a kinder, gentler, person than I was at one time. So, everything happens for reasons. When people say, why me? Why not you? And I think a lot of us, most of us, don't realize how tough we really are, how much love we really have, how much perseverance and fight and grace and compassion we really have until we get smacked in the face with something we never thought happened. And you have two choices. You can become a victim or you can become an advocate and a lover of humankind. And I just choose being an advocate, and a lover of humankind.
Michael, before I let you go, remind everybody again how they can follow you on social media and then go out there and pick up your book.
If you type in Mike J. Whelan, Mike J. J. Whelan, I'm there. Or if you put in cancer, I'll probably pop up. If you put in the word Bella, I'll probably pop up. But you can find me at Mike J. Whelan on I call it Twitter. I'm an old man. I still got it. I still use checks. So what are you gonna do?
I still call it
you know,
Twitter too.
I Twitter, and I use stamps and checks, and Rebecca, from 40 years has been trying to get me to stop using checks, but old dogs don't learn new tricks very often. But also for you, Chris, what you've done for the sports community, for the golf community, how you selflessly, promote people in every single day above yourself. You've always been a huge supporter of mine. I love you like a brother as well, and you know, you do things that if everybody did a little bit of what CT does every time, the world would be a much better place. So I hope, I can't wait to rebroadcast this and send thousands of people your way. You should have 1 million people listening to what you do, because as Paul said earlier, you're the best at what you do.
Well, that means a tremendous amount to me, Michael, just in general, but even more so coming from a guy who is as
I would have
talented
hired
as
you.
you.
Hey, I would have hired you right away.
I appreciate that. And I would have come to work for you right away, too. Michael, thank you so much for being generous with your time and sharing your stories. And I hope we get this privilege again very, very soon.
I'm always around. When somebody drops out, I got nothing to do. I'm in the house all day long, so you can always track me down.
Appreciate you, Michael. All the best to you and Rebecca. You guys are in my prayers. And like I say,
right.
we'll catch up soon.
All right, my brother.
See you, Michael.
Love to everybody.
That's the great Michael J. Whelan, folks, that he said. You can find him out on Twitter, X, whatever we're calling that thing these days, at Mike J. Whelan. And the spelling of his last name, just in case, is Whelan. Mike is just, like I said, I said the word amazing a bunch of times, and I couldn't mean it more sincerely. There isn't a more amazing, fascinating, unbelievable individual that you will run across in your life that's more of those words than Mike J. Whelan. I mean, if you are not following him on X, you need to do it right away. And then you need to go back and look through his page and read the stories. I mean, the stories are heart-wrenching. I mean, to watch your wife slowly being taken away from you from Parkinson's disease, for all the battles that he has had with cancer, of all the different places that it has popped up in his life. But the way that he eloquently writes about it, so we can kind of experience it through his eyes, is just a talent unto itself. And then to know that the way that he has gone about his battle, and the way that he didn't really talk about this, but look, some of the things that Mike has done is, talk about a guy who's selfless. He's gone out there and he is helping people. He was on a hotline for people that are dealing with mental challenges. And he was there as he was going through his battle, still going to work, as he mentioned, trying to help others. How great is that? And to think that he was putting his own battles and his own suffering aside to try to help somebody else deal with a crisis in their life, a crisis of self, a crisis of different mental issues that might have been going on in their lives. He was trying to help them through that while putting his own self aside. That's a great individual. And then you go back to the things that we started out the conversation with, a guy that was so uber talented at those places, at HBO, at CBS, at NBC, that he was tagged to come in to start the Golf Channel from nothing. It all came out of his mind and out of his talent to be able to get something like that, a 24/7, 365 golf dedicated channel that nobody thought would ever be successful, by the way. I mean, he had to overcome that piece. I think people looked at him and thought he was nuts. You're going to go do what? 24-hour golf? Who's going to watch that? Well, he made it all compelling. He got people to do things and to start a channel that has become uber successful, all because of what he thought up in his brain. And he did it within 5 months and got that thing off the ground and made Arnold Palmer proud. You want to talk about something that you want to put a feather in your cap that is better than anything else you could ever do? Arnold Palmer, he made Arnold Palmer proud and got that thing off the ground. That's unbelievable in itself. So I can't thank Mike enough for being, like I say, so generous with his time tonight to share his story and to come back and talk about it. I can't wait to get my hands on hard copies of the book. Like I say, here it is right here in my hand. Bella is in my hands. It's a very fast read, but it's just a wonderful heartwarming story about, his Chewini. I mean, that's amazing for what he was able to do with that and getting that out there. And again, it's number one in a lot of different categories right away. Why? A, because it's brilliant. B, because Mike is so respected by so many people that want to support him, that went out there right away and say, you're doing something? I'm in. Right? And that's kind of who Mike is. And that, again, is just one of the many wonderful aspects of his life that so many people want to rush to support him in whatever he's doing. And I can't wait for, I hope, the things that he talked about there at the end, right? I mean, Fairways of Wisdom. I was fortunate that Mike reached out to me and said, hey, will you read this? And yeah, of course I will. And it's brilliant. And hopefully he and Ross or whoever that can come together to put that out there. When he mentioned, can you imagine turning on Netflix the week of the Masters or prior to the Masters and getting to watch that, whether it's an hour or whatever it is, to talk about the character that gets taught so many wonderful lessons by the legends of the game. Each time he goes to a different hole, he learns a different lesson. It's fantastic. So hopefully that all comes to pass. And like I say, prayers up to both of them. And they're very near and dear to my heart. And continue to pray for them. I ask you to pray for them as well. If you believe, please send prayers up every day for Mike and Rebecca so that God breathes good health back into both of them. That's what my prayer is. I thank God for breathing good health back into Mike and into Rebecca. And I hope you'll join me in that prayer. And then we'll get Mike back on the show again before too long to talk about more of his happier stories and the things that he has done. And hopefully, whether the books are at number one, which I'm sure they will continue to be. And hopefully we get this movie made and we get some updates on that as well. Prayers up to Mike and Rebecca. All right, my friends, it is time for me to put a bow on a very, very emotional edition of Next on the Tee. My sincere thanks again to Ian Baker Finch, Paul Stankowski, and Mike Whelan for joining me. Scheduled to join me next week are Tom Patry will be back, as will another one of the top instructors and one of the most respected people in the Florida PGA section. Tom Wildenhouse will be here. And then we're going to round it out with another visit from former PGA Tour pro turned orthopedic surgeon Bill Mallon will be back with us. So it's going to be a great time, folks. I hope you'll come back and be a part of it with us. I want to thank our friends again over at the Pittsburgh Tribune Review for hosting this show on their site. For coverage of everything going on in Western Pennsylvania, including your favorite sports, go to triblive.com. You can find this show by then clicking on the sports section tab, and you're going to see the most recent episode right there front and center for you on the homepage of the sports section. Or you can click on sports and then podcast network, and then you're going to see the Next on the Tee logo. Click on that, and many of the most recent episodes from this season are going to be right there for you as well. You can also find this show out on Good Pods, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, and golfnewsnet.com, and pretty much anywhere you get your podcast content. But as always, a huge thank you to the wonderful folks over at Good Pods for making this show one of their recommended podcasts. So please download their free app and stream your favorite podcast right there from your favorite device. But like I say every week, most of all, my biggest thanks go out to each and every one of you. You guys are by far the greatest supporters in the history of podcasts. I appreciate each and every one of you so very much. Until next week, hit 'em straight, my friends.
Thanks for joining Chris again this week on Next on the Tee. We hope you enjoyed the conversations as much as we did. Please share the show with your golf buddies and be sure to follow it on Trib Live or your favorite podcast app so you never miss an episode. Thanks for pressing play and being part of the journey. We'll see you next week, right here, where the best minds in golf share their stories.